Welcome. I'm Debbie Rosas, and you are listening to Get In. It is a podcast about body, life, conversation. Nothing happens without a conversation. I am the founder and creator of the Nia technique. It is a movement art practice that it's been changing people's bodies and lives since 1983. All started with wanting to nourish the body, not by putting nourishment in your mouth, but by taking off the shoes. Today, we have a special episode, and I'm joined by Damian Jardim. Now, not only is he a Nia White Belt teacher, soon to go to his blue belt, he is a culinary-trained chef. So when it comes to nourishing everything from what you put in your mouth to what you put in your ears, music, what you put into your body through movement, he is, I believe, one of the most radiant guides of embodied movement and, most importantly, self nourishing and self healing. Now, I believe everybody's life story is courageous. So I want Damien to tell you a little bit about his story, his transformation of what he says reclaiming food. Now, maybe you're one of those people that you've had an on and off relationship with food. Maybe you felt like food controlled you, or you just weren't quite sure what kind of food you needed to have the right kind of fuel. We're going to learn today. Damien talks a lot about food as a sacred ritual. Boy, and I can relate to that. I believe movement every single day, everything that we do should feel like a sacred ritual. They listening to the little whispers through sensation, maybe the sensation of hunger or the sensation of that's too much or gee, that's not quite right. I don't know about you, but I've certainly even looked at a menu and had my eyes go, "Oh, I want that." And then the whisper of my body go, I don't think that's a good idea." Sometimes I listened and sometimes I didn't listen. I can tell you I always paid for it. I want to have a conversation today with Damien to explore what does it mean to live in tune with our body, to let go of any kind of myth of what's good food, bad food. Is there a perfect diet? Just like, is there a perfect way to move? No. There's your body's way. And just like in Nia, we embrace a holistic life. There is an approach to eating that's holistic as well. And as Damien says, it is one rooted in joy, plant based nourishment. And I love this. It takes on the philosophy that I love about martial arts: practice, consistent, committed, and I love this, imperfect action. I want to really hear from Damien about what does imperfect action mean. I've kind of got my own idea. So get ready to listen to a conversation about coming home to yourself and to your taste buds as well, living life with passion and vitality, not just through your bare feet, but with what you put in to nourish your body. Welcome, Damien. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you, Debbie, for such a beautiful intro. And it's really, really excited to be here with you and to have this conversation, one that really sits quite deeply in my heart. So excited to share.
So let's start with that question that I had about imperfect action. What do you mean by imperfect action?
It's been an interesting subject that I've recently been playing around with quite a bit. I feel I've lived my life trying to be perfect in everything, be it in school, be it in everything. And I think with that, adapted this thing of trying to perfect everything I do in life. And I realized only recently how that carried out in a lot of aspects of my lifestyle, not just education, not just sports, not just dance, or not just anything in terms of an achievement or a subject or some sort of principle, but how even within my life, how I was striving after this perfect way to live. And with it came a lot of pressure. And I felt for me personally became this block in terms of actually trying anything and getting uncomfortable and actioning anything that because I'm afraid of doing it wrong. So there was never a chance of trying something new because I might not be good enough. So let's just avoid it and avoid the disappointment of it not being perfect. So let's not even try it. And recently, I think it was about last year, I came across this phrase in a course that said committed, consistent, committed, imperfect action. And it's the small things. It's just about showing up and doing it, whether you fail, whether you get it right, whether you're not. It's taking those small steps towards where you want to become, even in the times of failure, to achieve what you want. And I think with that, for me personally, it really allowed me to realize how the whole process of life, be it nutrition, be it dancing, be it a course, it's a journey. And with the mistakes is where the growth happens. And those small little imperfect things is what I feel adds the value and the depth to the lesson and what that course or that gift that you're experiencing is offering you. So for me,
Yes.
that has been the biggest, yeah, the biggest lesson from it all.
Well, certainly, I think that is the body's way in perfect action. When you think about the body's way workout that taught us to actually stand up and walk, the trial and error, the falling down and getting back up, that's where the layers of learning and knowledge and skill are developed from a very primal perspective in many ways. And so what I love about this statement, imperfect action, is that to me, it really speaks to the wisdom of primal learning, that it's testing and it's redoing and it's learning and recalibrating. So I love that. Um, can you remember a point in your life, a moment where you didn't do something because you were afraid and you didn't quite yet have the imperfect action philosophy or mentality? Maybe when you were a child, where then you didn't act and you thought, oh, I wish I could.
Sure. Uh, I would have, yes, absolutely. There's been many indeed. But for me, the one that I think has had the biggest impact, I feel, is there was the time as a child where I was offered to go into a singing competition through a school thing, through a school program that they had. And I remember at the time that my teachers were all encouraging and like, go for it, you can do it. But within myself, there was the uncomfort and the fear of not doing it. And I believe having turned down that opportunity um, could have opened a lot of doors for me, or even just, even if it didn't open a career path for me. And I was like, oh, damn, I feel like there was a part of me that was lost in that sense because of the fear. I didn't explore something that could have opened up something within me. So there is often times where I look back at that and I'm like, I would love to go back and just give myself the opportunity to say yes and see what would have come from it.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah. I think, our listeners, I think most of us can look back into the past and there was a moment of desire, I want. And yet that,
Mm.
that fear creeps in, and embracing that primal wisdom of just go for it. And that's the only way you're gonna be able to stand up and walk with this one activity. Um, Share a little bit about you and how you actually got into culinary, right?
Wow.
Culinary school and cooking. How did that all happen for you?
It's quite a beautiful yet winded story, but it's my relationship with food has always been there. I come from a European background, so my family being Portuguese, it's very rooted in our culture, and having food has always been a part of our family. And growing up, I was fortunate enough to have a grandparents that loved cooking and loved sharing that with us, and spent a lot of my younger years growing up with her. And I think it kind of stemmed from there, but I didn't quite realize it. And then in the year 2010, my grand took us on a trip to Portugal. And that is, I think, where it all just sparked. I was exposed to just my family and how the family just constantly connected around food, the entire island. So I went to Madeira, the island, and just the whole island has just such a rich culture of food. There is a festival for this ingredients. There is a festival every weekend, whether it be flowers, whether it be and cherries, whether it be the wine, whether it be a saint, and yet the common theme throughout them all is the food. It is just there, and it brings so much life. And you walk down the streets, and the smells of the bakeries and all of that just really got me inspired, I believe, without me realizing it. But I remember coming home from that trip and just wanting to be in the kitchen. And then certain things happen in life where we kind of had to grow up. My brother and I had to grow up quite quickly, and we had to stop cooking for ourselves. Dad had to work. Mom and dad had separated, and we had to kind of fend for ourselves. So that kind of forced us into a situation where we would have to cook for ourselves, and oftentimes we would cook meals for dad for when dad comes home, then meals ready. Um, and so from there, my brother and I would just start cooking. I loved exploring a bit more, so I would then have the cooking show on and watch cooking shows and cook. Um, and then it kind of dulled down a bit as I went into boarding school, and I kind of stopped the cooking as much. However, the love for food was always still there. And I think with everything that was going on in my life, this is where food became my comfort. So I started developing, I believe, a habit of looking back at it now, of indulging and dealing with my emotions through eating. And in the process, picked up quite a bit of weight over the years. So I think that was a period of like 5 years where I was in boarding school. Mom and dad were divorced, and then after the 5 years, mom and dad got back together, and I decided, okay, I'm leaving boarding school. I'm gonna move back into the house with the family. I want to be part of the family if we're coming back together. And yeah, at that point, I just fell in love with it again. I started cooking again. It started bringing me joy. And I remember mom had gotten a job, so she was quite busy. And I remember telling my mom, okay, you don't have to cook dinners anymore. I'll cook dinners every night.
Lucky
And
mom.
that's just how, yeah. And that's just how it started. So it was from there, just started cooking every day and every dinner and playing around and doing some of mom's things. Very unconscious as to what I was cooking. Looking back at it now, was just cooking everything, like used to the way we grew up and the way mom used to feed us. So very much kind of in that sense. But loved it and loved to play around with it and explore with it. And it was so natural because I thought I was just, wasn't doing anything. But the feedback from the family eating was always amazing. So for me, it was just a real confidence booster. And it was somewhere where I felt acknowledged and seen. And for that reason, really treasured the art of it and the gift of it. And because of my love for it, I had two loves. I had a love for that, for cooking, which was a big passion. And then I had a love for numbers. So if I had to choose a career choices, it was either going to be cooking or accounting. And I decided I was going to go into chefing, and yeah, applied, started looking around for the best schools in South Africa. And we happen to have the best school in Africa in Stellenbosch. And I said, that's it. I'm going to apply, and I'm being adamant. I just believed I was going to get in, and the whole process happened, and I got in, and it was amazing. 3 years of immense training, and but yet so much depth in knowledge and understanding of what it is we are doing with the ingredients and how we can manipulate and change ingredients to create a result we want to create. Just started feeling my passion. And then I started finding this love for science behind food and how food cooking isn't just doing something. There is a science behind it. There's things that are happening as we are cooking to the ingredients. And that just fueled my passion even more. And yeah, from there went into fine dining. And then COVID changed everything for me and just gave what I believe was my biggest gift during COVID. It really just opened me up to realize there's more to life than the world I was living and the rat race I was in. And it just allowed me to really step out, find myself, and connect to that space of, well, how do I want to share food? There is more than one way of sharing food.
I
And
love
I
that.
during training, I built up this belief of you have to go through the ranks of working in all these restaurants and build yourself up to the top restaurants. And it's an industry that is very heavy and can be quite toxic in terms of the hours and everything. And I think I almost got caught up in that. So having had COVID, just to have that break, to pause, to reassess, and to find myself in a different environment from the environment that I'm used to really opened my eyes. And I think that just sparked my journey into health and wellness and made me decide to leave the restaurant industry and really step into health and wellness and start exploring plant-based food. And I started changing my diet. And yeah, that's kind of been the journey of it. And in amongst that all,
It's beautiful.
yeah,
It's,
so much clarity.
I wanna go back, I like to look at, the stages that one goes through in life, and you talk about the 5 years where your parents were separated and you were in boarding school. What part of yourself that you now can look at, "Wow, I'm glad I have that skill." What part of yourself did you discover during that experience, which I'm sure was quite traumatic on some level?
I think the biggest gift that at the time might have felt quite abandoning is independence.
Uh-huh.
I really feel like I found my independence in that time. It was a situation that required me to be on my own a lot, and to deal with a lot alone. And it wasn't easy, but at the same time, there was two things that came out of that. There was a strong sense of independence as well as a strong sense of faith. I believe that that journey gave me and a gift that I was able to discover with my dad, which I'll treasure forever. And our journey towards faith was amazing during that time.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So it was quite interesting. My father and I had quite an interesting relationship growing up. And during that time, there there was obviously so much going on for me as a child. Going through the divorce, I took on a lot of the blame for the divorce, and my dad obviously also had a lot that he was carrying. And I suppose we were both seeking support, and therapy wasn't working for me personally. I don't think it was my dad's way of dealing with things. And we ended up finding ourselves through a very close family friend at the time, being invited to a church. And at the time, it was just amazing to have that community, to have the sense of it was almost like there was this holding that happened where it didn't feel like you're trying to be fixed. it didn't feel like, or at least I can say for myself, I can't speak for my dad, but for me, it felt like no one was trying to fix me. No one was trying to tell me how I should be feeling. It was just a safe space where I was allowed to feel what I was feeling,
Yeah.
where was allowed to be angry. I was allowed to be sad. I was allowed to have moments of joy. And through just having the space to be able to feel that, it really allowed me to find joy within the community that was around me within this church. So it led to me attending youth camps and finding a common interest of just joy, I suppose, what it was. Like looking back at it now, and as I'm speaking, I'm realizing it was really just a strong sense of joy. And then to have moments where, from not really having a relationship with my dad, because my dad was just working ridiculous hours, would never see him, to now all of a sudden having something that we could bond with. And
Yeah.
we started attending men conferences and men camps together. And it was something small at the time. And I look back now and I clearly didn't treasure it or value it as much at the time. But it's something I look back now and I'm beyond grateful for. And even though Christianity isn't the big faith that I live now, however, it is still a sense of faith that I receive from that, that I'll forever hold on to, a sense of belief, a sense of understanding that there is a greater force that is with us. And I think that's probably, yeah, definitely a big lesson in my life.
That's beautiful. I love the acknowledgement of embracing, in a sense, your independence, a trust in yourself, when you're alone, when the fabric of your family, you know, comes apart, how do you, find yourself? How do you take care of yourself? And so developing the independence. And from what you've said, after that 5-year period when they got back together, your initial desire was to want to go back to, as you said, family. And I think that what I feel from you, and maybe this is from your experience in faith, in uh, group camp situations, community situations, is your understanding of the importance of that fabric of community, of connection. And then hearing you talk about your dad always working, right? And then you get into an industry which is brutal when it comes to hours and working, if anyone has ever been in the food industry as a chef. And then thanks to COVID, there's this break in reality where you step out of that. You're forced out of it in a sense, just like divorce, a child's forced, right? And you find another part of yourself, a different kind of independence that claims your life and your lifestyle. Having been able to look at what you had been doing, that life, and now having an opportunity to make a choice, which I think is one of the greatest gifts in life is when we have a choice. And you have this incredible skill, right, of with food, and now you have this choice, and you're stepping into a different kind of reality that you want to create for yourself. Can you describe what was that vision of reality that you wanted to create for yourself that would still keep you in touch with food, but it would be different? It would be on your time.
So it was quite interesting because at the time, I remember that the thing that sparked it all was, why do I have to wait to start living life? Why can I not live life now? And that's the question that sat with me throughout COVID, and or at least after COVID, what the period of COVID had really shown me is that we can live life now. I was fortunate enough to be able to have been locked down in an environment where I was locked down with my friend and we were at home cooking every day. We started baking bread. We started just really connecting through food. And every day, one of us would do something, one of the meals, one of us would do something. And we just started exploring, getting creative, trying new things. And it was really, really exciting. And I think COVID had allowed me also, it also showed me that life doesn't have to be this fast pace. It doesn't have to be this rushed and this hustle and this grind to, like I said, one day start living life. And I think that just really made me stop and realize, okay, cool. What is it that this time is showing me? And that time with in COVID, my friend that I was staying with was plant-based at the time. So we had predominantly started cooking plant-based. And because we were staying in her house out of respect, out of everything. And I just fell in love. I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much one can do with plants. It started to excite me. Like I started then inventing like how can I create certain things that I know I could do with animal products and how can I recreate it in a plant-based version. So I then started adapting after that period a more plant-based life myself. And I decided that for me, the life I wanted to create after deciding to leave the industry after COVID, so that was about the end of 2020, I think 2021.
Mhm.
I decided, okay, cool, I'm leaving the industry. And I remember the life I want to create is the life where I can live this life of a plant-based lifestyle, cleaner, um, whole foods, really focusing on what I'm eating and what I'm actually putting into my body. And that whole journey of COVID really allowed me to see that. It really allowed me to see that the choices I was making was choices from survival. It wasn't a choice of, "This is actually what I wanna be doing." It was a choice of because I was stuck in this cycle of habits. This is what I do every day. This is what I've gotta do to survive. This is what work is. This is the routine. And it was never a moment of pause. What am I actually doing? Do I actually need this? Do I actually want to be doing this? Is this serving my body? Is it not? And I think COVID really allowed me to do that. So that time, like I said, really allowed me to open up and decide going forward, I want to do something that allows me to live this lifestyle that I want to create for myself. And that's what I did. I ended up doing that and started going into consulting for a business, producing more plant-based options for them, healthy snack options. And in that alone was again, it was the complete unknown for me. But at the same time, it was me discovering for a business at the same time discovering for myself, which felt different to what the industry was that I was in. Like for this, for me, it felt like I was benefiting from what I was doing. It wasn't deteriorating me, which was amazing.
So, describe a plant based diet. I know that a lot of people might think that vegetarian is a plant based diet. Is it? Is it different?
So the reason why I like to use the plant based, because for me personally, it is a diet that is predominantly plant-based, and I think it doesn't necessarily mean you have to only eat plant-based. I feel that is more of a vegan lifestyle.
Okay.
Um, However, this is personal for me. There might be other people that feel other way. But for me personally, that is what it like how I take it on. Is the life for me that is 90% plants and then occasionally eating other things if you would like. So I do still find myself eating eggs, and occasionally I'll eat fish, but it's once a month if that's the case. So yeah, I think for me personally, plant-based is 90% plants, some eggs, and then the most important thing for me that I find carries quite strong within a plant-based diet is the whole foods aspect. And it's really being foods that is whole foods. It is the plant. It is unprocessed. Um, and essentially you're getting it all from the plant.
So give me an
And I think
idea of what
that's
what that whole foods is. Is it like eating the carrot and the tops of the carrot, and what does that mean?
yeah. So for me, whole food is, for example, if I'm gonna do plant-based, I'm gonna eat my legumes. I'll eat my chickpeas. I'll eat my veggies. I'll eat my plants. I won't. And in terms of protein, I feel as a vegetarian or as a vegan, we often refer to, we often tend to go towards processed items to get the protein. So that being items such as processed soya patties, or what you get processed nuggets, or like some beef burger or wannabe beef burgers that is processed with processed soya, and has gone through a whole process, which essentially for me turns the product or what you're eating into a non-living item. And I prefer to have things that essentially still alive and has life in it, so that it can give me life. And so yeah, so most common example that I can give is always refer to proteins. I feel like that's the easiest one where you get to processed items. And rather having legumes, chickpeas, tofu, that kind of stuff versus a vegetarian or vegan schnitzel or a processed sausage, plant-based sausage or a plant-based burger patty.
I know there are many people who have strict diets for medical reasons. And my experience has been when I look at the diets that are recommended with almost any disease, I'm oftentimes appalled with with what's listed, leaving the individual struggling with how can I cook for this particular um, illness or disease that I'm dealing with, whether it be cancer or arthritis, fibromyalgia. Do you work with people and help them specifically create diets?
It's not something I have done or I've taken on or advertised, but
Mhm.
there has been a few people along my journey that I have helped personally. I've helped specifically quite a few people with cancer. And yeah, I have to agree with you. The diets that often the medical system give is very questionable. I don't feel it supports the healing process that the body needs to go through. For me, what I've noticed personally from the people that I have helped is it is often a diet filled with a lot of processed products. So it is, you can eat sugar, you can have a can of Coke, you can have a can of soda, you can have a packet of crisps. Like everything that essentially is, for me personally, I look at it as poisoning the body and not giving the body anything to regenerate. There is no whole food, there is nothing living in there to give the body life to fight what it needs to fight. So often for me is, especially in with my experience with people with cancer, is my go-to thing is how do we reset the body? Because the body is so distressed right now. There is, you can't even gauge what your body is trying to tell you. There is no signals, there is no receptive. So the signals that you're getting are so misled because of habits, because of what you've been living and the way you have been living. So how do we reset the body so that you can first of all get pure communication from your body, and communication that your body actually is giving you that supports it, not out of habit. And for me, that has always been going through a juice cleanse, especially because I feel ideally what I would do is a fast. However, fast can be quite heavy for some people to just go out of nowhere from the beginning. So how do we find a way to ease into it? And often of the case, I've helped people, and often the people that I help are going through a holistic treatment program, and the treatment program advises them to eat plant-based. And then they get there and they're like overwhelmed because they don't know what to do. This isn't a lifestyle they've lived. And it just, on top of that, for me, creates more stress, which creates more trauma, which is just then manifesting more disease. And I'm like, let's just slow down. What can we do
Well,
now?
and also, leave someone feeling, "Okay, I'm gonna buy a bunch of vegetables, and I'm gonna steam them." And
Legit.
their taste buds are craving sweet, salty, sour, bitter, pungent, right? And certainly craving, oil and fat usually, so,
Exactly.
how did you retrain your tongue and your taste buds to not crave those things that maybe you used to crave?
So it's interesting. My journey personally was exactly that. It was a matter of detoxing, I believe. It was really resetting my entire system. So, and it happened for me. I was lucky enough to say that my experience happened without me even realizing. It happened
Uh-huh.
really
Okay.
gradually over a period of time.
Mhm.
So when I left the house to go study, I decided one lifestyle choice I'm making for myself is I'm cutting out sugar. And that's just kind of how I started. So it was the choice of reducing my intake of sugar, which then obviously with that, the body reacts because it's not something the body is used to having. And now you're depleting the body of it. It's going to want it back. So it was from there, like, okay, I've now cut that out. How do I replace it? What can I give my body to support it? And for me, that became a lot more fruit and a lot more things like dates. Um, that kind of became my sweet. Whenever I had a sweet craving, that's kind of what I would feed my body. So it really became a thing of reprogramming, repatterning my body, and then over a period of time of kind of thing. So also how I ended up becoming completely plant based is I first went vegetarian. And what I was doing at the time is so now I've cut out sugar. So I would buy veggies, but I would still buy a liter of milk and 6 eggs every week. And every week that would be my cap for the week. And then eventually one month I realized, oh, but a liter of milk and 6 eggs is starting to last me a month. So what is my body telling me? Do I need it? Because I'm not starting to crave it anymore. And from there, I decided, okay, cool. The next month I'm just going to cut it out. So my body kind of took me on this journey where it wasn't like a hard cutout. It slowly started phasing out for me personally. And then kind of found myself going back into a thing where it was like, okay, cool. Now this is how I can do it. And then, like I said, from there, it's like, okay, if I did get the craving for sweet, what can I do that is the wiser choice for me? And that was fruit, dates, this. If it was something salty, I would often cook up something savory for myself. And then if it was something sour, add a bit more acidity to a salad dressing that I'm making, if that's what it is, or eat an acidic fruit kind of thing as well.
That's the
So yeah, because then it's
science.
just fine.
Yeah, that's the science that you're talking about, which I think is so much a part of culinary training, of really understanding, like you say, a little more acidic or a little more salt. And I believe that kind of mastery is very important for a plant-based diet. So the people go, "Are you kidding me? This is all just this is all just plant-based," right? I've been in those
Yeah.
experiences where people can't believe that this, is all plant-based. Um, Give me an idea of, like, what would be one of your favorite, plant-based dinners? And also, when you are, creating the look of the dish, is it with the same artistry that you had when you were working in these fine dining restaurants?
Oh, that's an exciting question. I love that. So my my go-to dish that I'm creating, it's probably I could say this for all chefs, it's probably the worst question we get asked. What do you love cooking? I love cooking. I love
Right.
anything. But my favorite thing to do when it comes to plant-based dishing is how can I pack a punch with as minimal as possible? I think that is something I love doing, and I love doing it in a way that makes it accessible to people. So I love doing it in a way where it's like, okay, I can see Damien has done this. I can open my pantry and I've 10 to 1 got everything in my pantry already.
Yeah.
It's not a thing of I'm needing to go source all these things that are so hard to find. And that's my favorite way of cooking. So it's taking classics that you'd eat at home, be it my favorite dish that's coming to mind right now that I've made, one of my favorites is a moussaka, which is essentially uh, a layer of potato, then it is a layer of um, mincemeat, brinjal in between, and then topped with a layer of white sauce that is then baked in the oven. And my favorite was recreating that to be a whole food dish, leaving out all the gluten, leaving out all the dairy, leaving out all the gunk,
Alright, so
and
how do
ended
you
up
make that?
creating.
Okay, tell me how you make that because I love Muska.
So moussaka was amazing. It was like, so I basically just kept the potatoes the same. Instead of using um, processed seed oils. I used olive oil, cold pressed olive oil to roast my potatoes. I then created a very rich lentil bolognese, which was amazing instead of having your beef bolognese. And
Oh,
essentially, it's the same principle. You build the same flavor. You layer your onions, you layer in everything, create the flavor, add the tomato, essentially build that ragu. But instead of adding mince, you just add the lentils in. Same process. And then for the sauce, and then the brinjals, we did the same olive oil in the oven, crisp it up, create the layers. And then for the sauce, what was amazing was I've discovered over my time that cashew nuts are the best replacement for cream in the
oh,
plant-based diet. It's you blend it into the milk, and the moment you cook it, it thickens up like cream and gives the creamiest texture. So I essentially ended up creating like a cashew bechamel that was basically just cashews with a bit of spices and herbs to flavor it up. Threw that on the top and then in the oven, and it crisped up golden, just like a bechamel. And at the end of the day, it was just such a nourishing meal. It had your carbs, it had your protein, it had your fats from the cashew, and it was just indulgence. It was like nostalgic, rich, hearty, warm comfort food without the guilt. And I suppose at the end of the
oh,
day, just
I want that
nourishing that
recipe.
body.
That's great. That's great. Um, what have you found a really good gluten-free pasta?
I must admit, in South Africa, we are quite spoiled for choice. So it's been great. I think in South Africa, we have quite a few choices. I do find there's a lot here we have quite a bit playing around with in terms of uh, pea pasta, you get chickpea pasta, you get lentil pastas, and there's amazing brands that are very clean in the sense of that. Um, Regarding an actual proper gluten-free pasta that I personally like, I haven't found one for me that works the best. However, what I have resorted to is instead of buying or being worried about gluten, I've decided how can I find a pasta that I know is better in terms of quality of gluten, that I know
Uh-huh.
my gut won't respond to. And that comes back to the thing of whole foods, things that aren't as processed, that aren't as chemically enhanced, aren't as chemically. And I find a lot of the gluten-free options as well are, they're
Yes.
still using bleached flours, they're still using a whole bunch of processed things.
Yeah.
So what can I do to find? And I'm grateful for the fact that we have amazing brands in South Africa that use whole wheat flours that are milled directly, and then the wheat itself is milled and then made directly into a pasta straight away. So it's got all the bran, it's got all the parts of the wheat, it's unbleached, it hasn't got anything. At the end of the day, it just fuels the body. So for me, I personally prefer going for pasta like that over a gluten-free pasta,
Yeah.
which has just been so beneficial for my body. And also amazing in terms of flavor because you've got all these different flavors from the different brands and the different wheats that just blow your mind because you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this tasted like this. And it's really, really cool.
So how do you make a really beautiful vegetable soup with a very fantastic flavor? Like, I love a chicken broth, and I want that same kind of
Heartiness. Oh,
yes,
there's
I
so
want
many
that
takes.
heartiness.
There's so many tricks. So ideally, when making a chicken broth, your flavor comes in through by essentially roasting the chicken and creating that caramelization, which then gives the flavor to the broth. So I would apply the exact same thing to my veggies. So my veggies, like my carrots, my um, garlic, pop them in the oven, give them a roast, let them get some color, let them caramelize, and then throw that back in to the water. Your carrots as well, if they've got sugars in them that want to be caramelized, that can create so much flavor. So give them a caramelize, see how it changes the flavor of it just being a plain old broth with just like often people would say it tastes like dishwater. Um, but let it explore the properties of the vegetables and see how cooking it differently allows for different flavors to come out and changes the way the vegetable tastes. Another trick that I love, 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 love to do is often in plant-based and vegan or vegetarian cooking, the flavor profile that's often missed is umami. And I feel like that is a flavor that's often achieved easily through roasting chicken, roasting meat. It is what that flavor sense that touches all the entire palate. It addresses sweet, sour, bitter. It like really activates your entire palate. And there
Mhm.
are ways to get it in South Africa in plant-based cooking, and that would definitely be my go-to is miso paste, which is a fermented soybean paste,
Oh,
which is unbelievably umami. And you get different ones. You get a lighter one, you get a dark one. However, is that something that's not accessible? Mushroom carries so much umami. So just
oh
popping a
boy,
bit of
don't they?
mushrooms
Yeah.
into a broth, popping a bit of mushrooms into the broth is just like a spark, and it's just like creates a whole different flavor and a whole new world. So in terms of creating a soup, that's kind of my base. Find a broth that just has it all, and then you add the little things like a little bit of mushroom or a little bit of miso into the sauce if you like. At the end, once you've dished it into your bowl, just a little teaspoon of miso, and you have a completely different flavor. Otherwise, if you're going for something that's not umami, making something as simple as a butternut soup, try roasting the veggies first, and then rather than just boiling the veggies, roast them first, then boiling them, and see how it brings this natural
That's
sweetness because
so
now all your
I've never
sugars.
heard that, and I am gonna do that. I've never roasted the chicken first and then made the soup. I was just
Oh
boiling the all
wow,
the, blah, blah, and I'm gonna absolutely try that. I
definitely.
can feel how that's the right way to do, to break the skin, to soften, to open it up. I love that. Do you have a go-to, a spice that you think is just a must for plant-based diet?
Maybe it's a bit biased because of cultural for me, but for me, my spice that I always want is smoked paprika. I don't know why. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's because it's something my gran used to cook with a lot, or it's just something that is so often used in Portuguese cuisine. Um, it's actually more Spanish, so I don't know why we used to use it a lot. But, um, definitely for me, smoked paprika is just that one spice that I love. It just brings a bit of spiciness, a little bit of sweetness because of the pepper, and then there's also sometimes just that smokiness to add that depth of like people are like, "Are you sure this is not? Where's the
I
smoky, meaty, bacony flavor coming from?"
Yeah, and, I love watching the cooking shows. It's like my go-to, and I'm always amazed how much paprika they use, and it's like, "Boy, I'm just not doing it right." And and it's just like they put it in almost anything. Alright, so here I am, I'm in the kitchen, and my husband's on a very, very strict diet, to deal with pancreatitis, so very, very strict diet, and lots of veggie cooking. So, I have, yellow squash and zucchini and carrots and onions and mushrooms. What can I make where he'll go, "Oh my god, this is fantastic."
Oh wow, Debbie, I love this. This is my favorite way of cooking. Open the fridge. What is there? We're making something. So I love this.
Exactly.
It's an amazing question. So we've got zucchini, we've got mushrooms, we've got carrots. What can we make? Easiest thing to do that is a go-to that is often comfortable for people who aren't really like adventurous in terms of culinary, the go-to would be a really good stir fry and how to flavor it up differently. So, yes, your veggies can be plain and simple, simple julienne, chop it up, cut it nicely. I've also noticed how cutting a veggie changes the whole experience. The cut of the vegetable makes the stir fry taste completely
Really?
differently, I believe. So whether you're doing thinly cut, um, little thinly cut strips, or maybe even changing it up and doing different little chunks. So be it cut lengthways and then cutting into little triangles, or
Okay.
it changes the whole eating experience, which somehow changes the flavor and just makes it like a completely different experience. Um, and then the easy thing and the one thing that I love about plant-based food and making it simple and achievable to taste good is just mastering sauces. If you can just master the sauces, you can pack so much flavor into anything, be it a salad. You can have the simplest dish and have a one simple sauce that you just throw everything into a blender and blend. And then you can create the most amazingly tasting food. And you can be like, wow, I didn't realize it was so easy to create flavor in plant based food. So, regarding a stir fry or even a salad with all those veggies, and then doing something as simple as soaking cashews, if cashews are allowed, if you have, or even just creating whatever you have, if you have vinegar and if you have a olive oil and some lemons, a little bit of ginger, if you have some citrus fruits, add a bit of citrus to it, pop it in a blender and just give it a blend. Blend anything together and you can throw it over. If you're doing a stir fry, you can go into a base of something like ginger, garlic, maybe a little bit of soy sauce if you have. If you don't have soy sauce, if you're gluten free, we can always add a bit of tamari. Um, if you don't have any of those things, something that's a bit more processed, but also an option for umami is maybe you have Marmite, maybe you have Vegemite in the cupboard. That's also an option. Um, Putting all that into a blender, a little bit of sesame oil. The oils aren't allowed. Omit the oils. You can always put a bit of seeds in it, some sesame seeds to get that taste. And then just blending everything up and then throwing it into the pot. Maybe a little bit of honey just to add that sweetness and to thicken up the sauce. And you've got something amazing to cook along. You could also do a really good roast dish where you roast each item individually and create a lovely dip with it, be it hummus. If you have brinjals, you can make like a baba ganoush where you roast the brinjals over open flame. There's so much you could do. It's honestly so
Wow.
endless.
So
Um,
I've gotta really I've gotta, like, get out of my box, but I love the idea of having, the sauce and really using that to really pull out flavor is such a great idea, particularly for someone, um, that is on a pretty strict diet and can't have,
yeah,
meats, and, has to really, really be careful even with any kind of grains, etcetera, so beautiful.
yeah,
I will get in the kitchen and do that. Well, I love the fact that you have found this lifestyle for yourself that is a blend of culinary cuisine with plant-based diet. So my other question to you was, when you plate, are you as, I would say, artistic as you had to be when you're in fine dining?
I wouldn't say I'm as refined, like as meticulous about things, but I definitely am focused on that visual appeal. I love color. Like there's something for me about a plate of food that is just colorful, that screams life.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I go for. So it's definitely still visually appealing. It's definitely still attracting. It's definitely vibrant. Um, However, it is more untouched.
Yeah.
It's more natural. It is more like it's meant to be on the plate, like it hasn't been finessed with. And I think that is more the style that I have come along with in terms of my plant-based cooking. Is that more farm style, very
Mhm.
elastic, very homey, but yet still so visually like attracting.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
definitely.
To show the
Yeah.
beauty of the color, as you said. I love, um, making sure on the plate I have orange and yellow and white and brown and green and all of those colors. The theory is that if the eyes see all those colors, that we are already taking in nourishment and being satiated. I certainly feel that way. And I grew up
Absolutely.
with a mother that the table setting was always very, very important. And so you'd never just threw the food on the plate. And the soup had to be in the right kind of bowl. My mother was from London, so we had fine china and beautiful crystal, and everything had to be in its right little shape, whether it was a
Yeah.
compote or whatever. And I love that. I still love the artistry of life, which is what I think you have found a way to integrate that into your life. Now, you also teach Nia, so you've also got movement as a nourishment. Um, who do you love sharing this work with, Nia, as movement, as a nourishment for the body?
Wow. So it's my journey has been quite interesting in terms of sharing Nia. I've shared with initially started teaching, deciding to share Nia with the intention to share it with kids. At the time, I was private chefing for a family, and I just couldn't believe what the kids were going through at the age of 13, struggling with insomnia, anxiety because of the pressure of school. And I was just like, they need this. Like, this is what they need just to regulate the nervous system and just connect to joy. They are still kids. Like, how are they not
Oh,
experiencing that childlike joy anymore? And that was my biggest intention to go into Nia with, was with the kids. And I suppose the journey has just taken me other directions. I have found myself sharing with communities back in Somerset West with my mentor. I've also found myself sharing at here in Kenya. I'm actually currently in Kenya, busy with work. So I've started sharing here in Kenya, where there is only one other Dia teacher in Nairobi, and I'm in the coast. So bringing Nairobi to here. So I think who I love sharing here with is essentially people that are seeking that connection with body, that connection with themselves, that connection of building that relationship with who they are and with their body. I think especially because my journey has been a journey of coming back to my body, as I didn't realize it at the time, but there was this disassociation with it. It was very much head driven, so it's really much my passion. And the people I want to share with is people who want to journey back home to the body and connect with it and really live with it and how to live this life with the body as a companion and not as someone thing we're trying to fix, but someone that is here to journey with us and something that is a part of us. And I think that is definitely the audience and the people I'd love to share here with.
beautiful. Well, when I think about, your journey, either into nourishment through culinary school and, as you said, your upbringing, the Portuguese family upbringing, just being around the smells and the tastes, etc. And I think about Nia as body based, right? So body based, we are rooted in this beautiful earth, which is where we get these beautiful plants, from. So I feel there is such a beautiful blend of the cuisine of Indian movement and the cuisine of plant-based food. So I look forward to
That's beautiful.
coming and dancing with you and then having you at some point cook a fantastic meal for me. I'm gonna hold that on my bucket list as something to happen. How can people get hold of you, Damien, if they have questions, they want to hire you to come as a chef and cook for their party?
So currently, my main form of contact would definitely be my social medias. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as Movement Food. So that's Movement Food, one word, would probably be the best way. Either sending me a DM, um, and then on there I do have also links to my WhatsApps and all of that as well. So basically, my Instagram and my Facebook would be the easiest to find all my content information.
And it's not your name, but it's called Movement Food.
Yes, movement food. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, excellent. Well, I thank you so much. And thanks, everybody, for listening to Get In. Remember, nothing happens without a conversation. This is the time to get into our bodies, to get into life, to get into the conversation, to make change. You can find out more about me at debbierosas.com. You can sign up for a subscription and receive two, not one, but two articles that I write about body and life every single week, inspiring and motivating to keep you in a relationship with your body. You can also find the Nia Experience 2 weeks free on Nia On Demand and also Instagram and Facebook, Nia Technique. I thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to next time where we can have even more conversation about the body and life. And I'll see you next time.